You have to defend your mind. It is absolutely necessary to defend your mind. Hypno Athletics is exercising your mind towards universal harmony and spiritual wisdom through healthy living and self-defense. An interesting story that comes from science fiction fantasy is the movie Inception. And Leonardo DiCaprio's character was something like a defender of the mind in some ways. He taught people a type of mental security so that someone else would not be able to enter their dreams and extract information from them, like corporate secrets and different types of things like for example, combination to a safe. And the idea is based on a technology that the Army developed in which multiple participants, let's just say 2 people, can share the same dream space. Usually it's one person entering into another person's dream. And so the job here is to learn how to defend against having information extracted from your mind. Now, here's what's interesting. Number 1, the first thing I'm going to tell you right now is one of the first things that you can do to absolutely defend your mind. It is absolutely necessary to practice mental, psychological self-defense. And what I'm going to tell you right now is one of the steps you have to take, and it's about the movie. Some time ago, I wrote a blog called Inception, Extraction, Deception. And the reason why I wrote that is because I immediately realized, as a master hypnotist, a clinical hypnotist or hypnotherapist, one who studied at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. You can find them at hypnosis.edu, one of the best hypnosis schools. I say the best hypnosis school, hypnotherapy college on the planet. That's arguable, of course, you could say. Some people will argue with that. But I immediately saw the problem with something in the movie. That's why I called the blog article, Inception, Extraction, Deception. Because whether or not James Cameron or whoever it was that wrote and directed that movie did what they did intentionally or put forward the idea intentionally about Inception, the fact of the matter is that it's very misleading. And here's how. Basically, the premise of the movie is that the inception, meaning to get information into someone's mind so that they would believe it is their own, was much, much more difficult, nearly impossible, and much more difficult than an extraction. And as I previously said, an extraction is getting the information out of a person's mind. Whereas inception is putting the information in a person's mind and getting them to believe that it's their own. And just now, as I was listening to a talk once more with Seth Godin, he talked about how he recently learned about, and not recently till now, this podcast I was listening to was probably a year or so ago, but he said that he recently learned about the term autodidact or autodidactic, which means self-taught. And he realized that everyone is self-taught, that a teacher or an instructor might tell you something, but it is up to you to learn it yourself, to make it your own through experience. And this is the same thing that I learned at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute about hypnosis, that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. This is why the laws of hypnosis are the laws of self-hypnosis, which are repetition and association. And in the movie, the deception, whether it was intentional or not, is that an inception is much more difficult and nearly impossible than an extraction to get information out of a person's mind. Well, here's the thing. This happens to us all the time, and this is in fact the way that we learn anything, from our senses, from outside of us. From the time we are born, all the senses that we have, and I say that because some people are born deaf, some people are born blind, some people unfortunately are born both, and some people are born with different variations of sensory deprivation that they don't have. But to a fully sensory human being, we have 9 senses. We have sight, we have hearing, we have smell, we have taste, we have touch. Then we have proprioception, equilibrioception, thermoception, nocioception, and equilibrioception. Let me make sure I got those right. Thermoception, nocioception, equilibrioception, proprioception, and nocioception. So, I think I doubled up on, I doubled up on a couple of those because there's only 4 more of them. So there are 5 senses plus 4. So nocioception is the sense of pain. Thermoception is the sense of temperature. Equilibrioception is the sense of balance, roughly speaking. And proprioception is related, but it's spatial awareness. And so we're born with those 9 senses, and we make up the maps of our world based on those senses. And another thing I learned at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute from one of the neuro-linguistic programming classes, NLP, not to be mistaken for natural language processing, which is from the artificial intelligence training world and large language models, natural language processing. But this NLP is neuro-linguistic programming for humans, a subset of hypnosis that says the map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. Because, of course, back in the day, cartographers, those people who made maps, they could go across the land and draw a map, and it would be different from someone else who crossed that land. And maybe it could be for some really obvious reasons, like a tree that was there one year is not there another, or it's flooded one time when one person is traveling and it's dry at another time. Or maybe they're just using different units of measurement, right? But the map is not the territory. But we make up the world, we make up our map, the way we navigate through the world, based on the information that comes in through our senses, right? So just like a map maker would have to sense and see and feel and touch the things around them, they'd make up the map. And the same thing we do throughout life, throughout time, throughout chronology, right? Chronologically, time, one of the fundamentals of physics, we learn things psychologically. We take that information in. My point being that Inception is, in fact, the easier way that we learn things. And it is the way that we learn things, I should say. What I'm saying is that it's the easier way of information exchange than what the movie Inception would have us believe. Extraction is actually a little bit more difficult than Inception, because in fact, Inception is the way that we human beings learn. My acronym for that puts these things at equivalence, which is PITCH, P-I-T-C-H, Programming, Influencing, Training, Conditioning, Hypnosis, or all equivalent. I could easily swap out the I, influencing, for indoctrination. I use influencing because now in the world of social media, we have influencers which influence us and stimulate us, motivate us to go buy things, right? Which I will resist going down that rabbit hole right now. But the point is that Inception is in fact the way that we are, as human beings, are built to obtain information, by it coming into our senses, by input. Input is the way. Inception is the way that we learn, and therefore it is the easier, simpler way for us to obtain information. Now, the subconscious mind has a critical filter, we could call it, in the theory of mind learned in clinical hypnosis schools like the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, and it has a critical filter which job is to filter out new and unfamiliar information, because most of the new and unfamiliar information is deemed or labeled or tagged by the subconscious mind as being a threat to survival or non-survival, unsafe, and so it takes longer for it to be accepted into the subconscious mind by the critical filter. But that is the main way that we take in information. And when the information comes in, it always comes in, we either label it, i.e. associate it with, or another way of saying, I could say, is we take in the information and we label it or associate it either as being safe or not safe, acceptable or unacceptable. And if it's safe and acceptable or trusted, right? Trusted or untrusted. We can use so many different adjectives for that. If it's trusted, it passes into the subconscious mind and there begins to influence our behavior. If it's not trusted, it still influences our behavior, but in a different way. It influences our behavior to avoid the untrusted behavior that it would have otherwise guided us to. Like, for example, a simple case is if I look at the ingredients on some food and I see high fructose corn syrup, I do not trust a food that has high fructose corn syrup, and therefore my behavior will be not to eat it. Whereas other people who don't know any better will eat that food with the high fructose corn syrup because they trust it or just don't know any better. Which is a rough way of talking about how the critical filter works in the subconscious mind. But that's basically how it works. So Inception is actually the easier exchange of information, whereas an extraction, which the movie posited was more difficult, or the extraction, which the movie posited was easier, is actually the more difficult one to get information out of someone. Because many people, myself included, we clam up, we quiet down, we don't really necessarily trust a lot of people so much, or at least I used to be that way. But I noticed that it is the behavior of a lot of people. A lot of people want their privacy and to keep secrets and so on and so forth. And so they don't open up as much. And it's much more difficult to hook up some machinery to a person's body and extract their thoughts. Whereas you could turn on a TV, you could turn on a podcast, you could open up a book, and the input, the inception, is automatic. Because that is in fact how we learn. So, it is absolutely necessary that we practice psychological, mental, hypnotic self-defense. I could say it is imperative that we practice programming, influencing, training, conditioning, and hypnotic defense against information that is going to cause us to have to practice behaviors that lead to unwanted outcomes to our health, fitness, and wellness. And that's the main thing. The main thing is that the reason why so many people, so many men, are not in the best physical and mental conditioning they can be in is because they've been psychologically hijacked, brainwashed, fooled, deceived by clever devices that are all around us in societal programming, influencing, training, conditioning, and hypnosis. Societal pressure, societal structures, regardless of what many people think of as being hypnosis, so much indoctrination, education even, is hypnosis, because the definition of hypnosis is anything that controls our behavior. Anything that controls our behavior. So everything hypnotizes us. It's just that the way that we behave from those things that we are hypnotized by is different in each case, because sometimes we learn things or are hypnotized by things, meaning it becomes part of who we are, our belief system, our behavior, and we act a certain way accordingly, whether we trust that information or not. If we believe an advertisement for a product, that it will give us the result that it says, then we'll buy it. If we don't believe it, regardless of whether we got the same information, two people can get the same information, but one will buy the product and one won't, because one person will trust the advertisement and one person will not. Or even the person who does not, if both people don't trust it, one of them still will buy it because they feel like they don't have any other option. Hypnosis, brainwashing works in many different ways.